So, political reform, it's one of those phrases that gets thrown around all the time, right? But what does it actually mean to strengthen a democracy? To make it work better for everyone? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into today.
Let's kick things off with a big question. Is democracy ever really finished? Is it some kind of destination you arrive at? Or is it more like a journey, a project that's never truly done? How you answer that pretty much frames this entire conversation, because it suggests democracy is always a work in progress. And that right there leads to a huge shift in how we should think about this. When we see problems in our democracies, it's so easy to just see them as failures. But what if we looked at them differently? What if every single challenge is actually an opportunity, a chance to make things better?
Okay, so what do these opportunities for progress actually look like on the ground? Let's get into it and identify some of the core pressures that democracies all over the world are dealing with right now. The thing is, these challenges aren't one size fits all, not even close. For some countries, like Myanmar, the challenge is foundational, just trying to build a democracy in the first place. For others, like the US and India, it's more about expansion, making sure that the democracy we have truly works for everyone. And then you have places like Pakistan, where the challenge is to deepen a democracy that's already there, but is under pressure from other powerful forces.
And even when you zoom in on a well-established democracy, you see the threats are often coming from the inside. Things like corruption or the influence of big money. Deep social divisions can stop progress in its tracks. But honestly, one of the biggest challenges of all is when people just check out. When public participation gets low, the whole system gets weaker.
Now, when we see all these problems, what's the first thing people usually say? We need a new law, right? It's our go-to solution. But is it really the whole answer? Can you just wave a legal magic wand and fix everything?
Well, this brings us to a really simple but honestly profound idea from our source material. Laws alone are not enough. You can have the best, most perfectly written law in the world, but that doesn't automatically mean things will change on the ground.
And here's why that's so true. There is a huge, huge difference between just having laws written down somewhere and having democratic values in action. Think about it. A law can be ignored, it can be bypassed, but when the people, when citizens are actually committed to things like fairness and accountability, they create a whole culture where those laws actually have teeth.
Okay, so if laws by themselves aren't the whole answer, then what is? Well, the real path forward isn't about choosing laws or citizen action. It's about combining them. It's about creating a powerful toolkit for the people.
And this really requires us to flip our thinking about what reform is. The most powerful laws aren't just about restricting what powerful people can do. Nope. The best laws are the ones that actually empower what ordinary citizens can do. They give people power. The Right to Information Act, or RTI, is a fantastic example of this in action. It basically turns any regular person into an investigator. You see something that doesn't look right, you file an inquiry, and the government is legally required to give you the facts. All of a sudden, you're not just a spectator. You're armed with information, and you can demand change. You've been empowered.
So who are the people actually picking up this toolkit and using it? Well, an empowering law is just an instruction manual until it's put to work, and it's active citizens and engaged media and organized social movements that really get the job done. That combination, that's the real engine of change.
All right, let's put this toolkit to the test. Let's look at one of the stickiest problems we mentioned earlier, the influence of money in politics. To even begin to tackle this, you need one crucial tool from that kit: transparency.
Really, it all boils down to one simple, powerful question. Whose money is paying for our politics? Because if we don't know the answer to that, we can never be sure whose voice is actually being heard. And the proposed solution is just as direct: radical transparency. The problem is that secret funding allows powerful, unknown interests to pull the strings. The solution? Make it all public. Every dollar in, every dollar out. That starts to shift the power away from a few massive, anonymous donors and back towards everyday citizens.
Okay, so we've looked at the challenges, the fact that laws aren't magic, and the real power of citizen action. So where does that leave us? What's the big takeaway here? Well, it points to a much bigger idea about what democracy even is and what our role in it should be. It really means we have to redefine what we mean by democracy. It's not just this thing we do every few years at the ballot box. It's a daily practice. It's a system that's built on a foundation of equal rights, real freedom, constant participation, and a culture where everyone is held accountable.
And all of this leads to a really important conclusion. No democracy is perfect. They all have problems. The real test isn't whether a democracy is flawless. The test is how its citizens respond to those flaws. At the end of the day, the job of making things better and fairer falls on us. So, if democracy isn't some finished product you just buy off a shelf, but it's this ongoing project that we are all a part